Hey everyone, this is me, the Undead Viking, and I want to talk to you today about this game. It is called Castle Madness. Castle Madness is a game in which each person is going to be taking on the role of a great old one, yes, like a Cthulhu or what have you, and you are going to be vying for a determined number of cultists that can only worship one of you, and as you gain these cultists, you have to give them buildings of power for them to reside in, so they can definitely chant your name to the heavens. So eventually, hopefully, you are the one of the great old ones that gains the most power at the end of the game and is the one that gets summoned to destroy the world. Yeah! Alright, so the game is a heck of a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the art. I enjoyed just the process of going through it. You're going to have a hand of cards that is going to have a varied amount of different actions on them, and you get to gain more and different cards as the game progresses, and then you're going to be able to play those cards, and it's kind of a big secret. You make a stack of them, and then everybody kind of picks, and then it's one of those cool reveal moments as each person takes an action as the play progresses, something that I really enjoyed about it. So let me show you how the game is played. To show you all the different action cards, it is going to take a little bit of a while, so I do apologize for the length of the gameplay portion of this, but once we get through that, I'll come back here and I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, so this is Castle Madness, and I'm going to walk you through the mechanisms of the game so you have a good idea of how the game is played. I have set the game up for me and some other old ones that are trying to destroy the world. Just quickly going over the board so you can kind of see what you're looking at. Up here, this is the track of the game. You have these different phases that you go through, and you reach here. This is the end of the game. The star phases are the reason for that is that on those particular turns, it's a little bit of a catch-up mechanism that they have. That like the players that players that are in last place as far as points go, get a little bonus. They get a free constellation card. And I'll talk about those here in just a little bit. But it's just, they basically gives, if you've had some bad luck, perhaps like, another player kind of knocked you down a little bit and you need to gain some power, it just adds that. And so, but it's not every turn. So these three things, these are tracks that you'll be able to move your great old one up, and it allows you to kind of manipulate the way that you want to play the game. I'll talk about those more in detail when we talk about the actions that are used to increase on that. But just think of it as a way that you can modify just how your great old one will play, if you will. There are these decks of cards that you see here. And these all have the same back, so because you get a deck of cards that you play with that have these backs, and since you're going to be selecting cards in your turn, you don't want the other players to know what cards you're going to be choosing to play that round. There are these monster cards that you can summon. Those constellation cards are referenced, some spell cards that you'll use. There's also these smaller decks of cards. There are these artifacts that have these special powers that you can have. Those are always good. Secret objectives. When you complete secret objectives, you gain victory points, and then you as the game progresses, you can collect more and more of those cards, so you can be working on several of them at the same time. And also there are these building cards, and buildings are where you're going to be putting your cultists that will be praying to you and giving you power, and also the buildings themselves will give you bonuses as well. This giant pile of tokens here are the cultists. When they are on this side, they are considered to be actively praying to you, or basically usable, if you will. When they're on this side, that means that they're terrified. That is what other players will be doing. They'll be casting spells on your cultists, trying to terrify them. And when they are terrified, they aren't dead, they aren't gone or anything like that, but unfortunately they aren't able to actively worship you, and they can't give you any faith power, which is a very important resource that you have in the game. It allows you to do pretty much everything. And so the whole thing about this game is that you're kind of building up, and I like building up games. You're going to be getting more buildings that will allow you to get more cultists. And as you get more cultists, they give you more power. And so as the game progresses, you kind of have an engine that allows you to do those things in succession. You know, get a building, get more cultists, get more power, and so on and so forth. And all the while, you're also going to be combating the other players, you know, racing against them, so to speak, but also combating other players and trying to hold them down. Now, this is the Madness spinner, and yes, this game has a spinner, and I don't mind spinners. I think it's, you know, it's just another version of dice or whatever. These icons here are the good icons that you want to get, because the good icons give you power that allows you then to you do certain actions. And so you'll spin this, and then if you get a power result, like, oh, is that on the line? Maybe I have to re-roll that. I don't know. Respin. But they allow you to take the actions, like certain actions that are going to be decided upon by the cards that you play. Once again, I'll talk about that in just a little bit. These are Madness icons. Madness icons, basically, the actions that you've taken have subjected your cultists to so much distress that they have gone insane, and they no longer are any use of you. Now, if you lose cultists for any reason, they go into this pile, this swirling madness, if you will, and they are then there is one other place they can go, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But normally, when you lose a cultist, they go here and just become part of this shapeless form, if you will, and then they are, none other people summon them. They're all basically the same. You can give them names if you want, but I wouldn't, because their longevity is very small and very short in this game. Alright, so each person gets a great old one that they will control. All great old ones have a cool name. Each one has like a special power. So, Sanamala Pure, at the start of the game, place the Dark Young Monster card in your library. If it gets discarded, place it back in your library. So you get like a monster right away. Let's say Nidra Baisilu, the outer thing. Resolving this action costs you one power less than normal during a moon round. In addition, when drawing monster cards, draw 2 and keep 1. So, special powers. Now, I chose this one, and this is the one when I played this game I always played Retiximectidal, and maybe if you took a moment to read that backwards, you'd probably understand why. But anyway, so with these, if you're the star player, you get the star player marker that you put right there on your card. These two abilities, which I'll talk about also in a little bit, are one-shot abilities that you have in the game. Basically, one of them gives you a bunch of faith one time. You can see plus 10 faith, and one of them gives you plus 3 cultists one time. And they're there. So if you have a bad turn and you don't have any cultists, or you're not going to get a lot of faith that particular turn, you can use it once and you can get those. Now this is your faith track. As you gain faith each turn, you will count the faith, and then you can have up to 19, because on the flip side of this, there's a plus 10 marker. So if you're plus 10 and on the 9, you have 19 total faith. Faith does not carry over from round to round, so each round you'll gain faith, so you might as well spend it if you can. Keep that in mind. Faith, spend it, use it up, because it doesn't help you very much to save it and go to the next round. Okay, so let's talk about how a round progresses. So, starting round, we're on a moon round, so we wouldn't do the star round aspect, where one person that's behind everybody else as far as points go gets the bonus. So, and you do get a cool round sequence card that delineates this, which is pretty nice. So, like, if the stars are right, that's the first thing, but this is not a star round. But if it was, we'd go through the process of the player with the least number of points getting a consolation card. And if there's 2 people tied, or 3 people tied, they all, or whatever, whoever's tied for the least number of points, they're all going to get a stars are right card. So then you gain 1 faith for each follower that you have, each cultist you have, praying to you. And then you total that up. You're going to total up how many cultists you have. You're going to gain faith and put that on the track mark for that. If you have any cultists that are scared, or if they're full of terror, at that point you then flip them back over. Remember, if they are terrified, they don't give you any faith, so you adjust that as well. Then, if you have resolved action cards on the board, If you had one here and you had sent a cultist to go and work on, like, say, doing this summon building thing, they would return then to one of your buildings. If you don't have room for whatever reason, if you don't have room for all the cultists you have, they would go back to the Swirling Madness at that point. And then after you return those, then you would return the cards to your hand that you've done. And then this is when you're going to start planning your Grimoire for this particular round. What that means is that you're going to be taking these cards that you have, and you will be putting them together in a pile with, like, the first card, like so, and you have to kind of do it in reverse order, or basically you create them in your hand. So, like, if these were the 3 things you wanted to use, and you wanted this third one to be the first one, you put them down in front of you. And then you're going to start, if you're the first player, then you're going to turn the card over, you're going to do your action, then the next player turns their first card over, does the action, and so on and so forth. So the timing of it matters a great deal. So, because you have to kind of, gamble maybe that somebody else isn't going to do something on their turn that's going to mess up what you're attempting to do on your particular turn. So, but once everybody puts their cards down, they will reveal those and turn them over one by one. And then, and if you have 3 cards and somebody else has 5, and that person's the only person that has 5, they would just continue going through their cards. It is possible that players could run out of power to activate those cards that they have. If that happens, then they just don't do them, and you just move on to the next card. After that is done, you then have the end of the round. The end of the round is, if you want to, you can buy if you have any faith left over, and this sometimes can happen, you can purchase a secret objective card and put that in your as one of your secret objectives for 1 faith. Then you reset your faith to 0. And then you pass the first player marker, and then you advance the round marker. And I actually did forget, each person does start with 1 secret objective card, so we'll just go ahead and look and see what we got here. And so this one says the arcane power, and I'd have to use 2 of this, like, spirit energy, which is this stuff, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. If you used at least 2 of that in a single round, then you'd be able to flip this over and show that you've earned 3 victory points for doing so. And you just keep your secret objectives to yourself happily, and nobody else can touch them. And they don't get revealed until you actually complete those. All right, so finally, let's talk about these action cards one by one, just so you can kind of get an idea. And I don't want to go too far into the realm of how these work. I mean, most of these are just going to be, you're going to place them down on the board. You're going to assign a cultist to go ahead, or cultists to go ahead and do the action. Most likely, you're going to end up spinning the spinner, and then you're going to see how those occur. So, the first card that I have here is called Summon Building. And so with Summon Building, this is what you're going to be doing to get more buildings in front of, that your cultists can use. When you summon a building, you have to pay a faith just to be able to put it down. And then you're going to place 1 to 3 cultists on the card after you place it down. And then you choose an available building from the row. So you choose one of those 3 buildings, and then you make a madness spin and add the number of spun power icons to the number of cultists on the action card. And if the result if it's at least equal to the card's summoning cost, then the action card has been successful, and you may take the building and place it onto your old 1 sheet, and then draw a new building card to fill the gap. So if you go ahead and these cards, they will actually tell you how many cultists can stay on there, and they give you other stats as well. So let's show you how maybe some of that works. So, okay, so this one, as you can see, you can have 3 cultists on there, and it has a 3 power that's needed to summon it. It also has the ability of, you can have a maximum of 2 monster cards in your library, which is good, because more monsters is good, right? Alright, so if you need 3 power to do it, we have to assign, maybe we assign 2 of our cultists to it. We take a spin on the old chart here. We just need to get 1, and I think that's on the line. I get to respin. Okay, and then I get 1 more power, so that's enough. I'd be able to take the Pit of Horrors. I would gain that particular spot, and then I'm going to go ahead and replace the one that I just earned with that particular card. I do like the fact that the buildings are different and they switch things up, and I like just the different powers they give as well. Things like that make games fun, right? You know, just the variable powers that you can acquire as the game progresses. You are only allowed to have up to 3 buildings. If you gain a building and you can replace one that you have, and if you have, and then you would just discard the ones that you do not want. All right, moving on, we have the recruit card. Recruit card is pretty simple. It's just you being able to recruit more of your more followers or more of the people from the swirling mass over there into your group. So here, let me just move those guys out of the way there. I'll go through these one by one. The recruit card allows you to resolve. You play the cultist on the action card, and this doesn't take any faith to use. It's one of the few abilities. So a lot of people will open up with this one usually on their turn. You then make a madness spin, and then you take a number of cultists from the swirling madness equal to the number of spun power icons, and then place those on your buildings. And you can only recruit the number of recruits like that you can actually house. So like in this case, see, like we have an extra 3 spots, so we'd spin this, we'd see what we get here, and I got a madness! Ah! So this guy would go crazy. But if I had ended up there, I would be able to take 2 more cultists and place that within my group. Alright, so the next action is called Dreams of Terror. Dreams of Terror is the main way that you're going to be attacking other people and trying to make their people crazy. You pay a faith, you place a cultist on there, and then you choose a player that you want to attack. That person is then declared the defender. And then you choose one of, so if somebody was attacking this one, they would choose a building that they wanted to attack. And then they just make a madness spin. And then the number of defending cultists equal to the spun of the power is now terrified. And then if all the cultists in the building are terrified, through whatever effect, the person that causes that gains a power token, which are right over there. Power tokens, when you gain them, you're allowed to spend them as to basically add to the power of spins that you do. So, like, if you rolled a 1, you want an extra power token, you can spend a power token to do that. And I should mention that at any point, like, if somebody would, like, cause your people to go insane if you wanted to, and you didn't want that to happen, you're allowed to spend 2 faith to prevent that from occurring. To save one of those people from going terrified. And you can also spend 2 faith to respin the spinner if you want to. And you can do that as many times as long as you have the faith to do it. And remember, terrified cultists are flipped over like so, and they do not count towards, they don't give you faith in the next turn. So that, like I said, that's like one of the main ways that you're going to attack people. Alright, so the next one up is called Read from the Grimoire. It costs 2 faith to succeed at. And then you place 1 cultist on the action card. Like I said, you're almost... See, cultists are resources just like faith. You need cultists to be able to do what you want to do. Then you make a madness spin. And then depending upon the number of the spun power tokens, you can now choose one of 3 possible outcomes. You can do chant, horrors, or convert. To chant, the next time you resolve a recruit, this round, it doesn't carry over, you gain +1 power to your roll. So basically, like, you set up with this one, and then you can recruit more. If you take horrors, the next time you do a Dreams of Terror, you gain +1 power to that, so you can make your Dreams of Terror effect even more. And then if you do convert with 3 power icons or more, then you may take a cultist from the Swirling Madness and place it on one of your buildings. In addition, you gain a power token. So that's what Reading from the Grimoire does. Now, so how do you defend yourself? You can raise protective wards. And once again, remember, timing is essential. So, like, if you're not the first player and somebody attacks you before you're able to cast this, then it wouldn't work, obviously. So it costs 2 faith, and then you resolve this just by paying the faith cost. And then if you're targeted by a Dreams of Terror during this round, the player counts as having spun -1 power icons. And then also, if the cultist used to resolve the other player's Dreams of Terror goes insane, you get to take a power token from the reserve. So if they roll madness, then like it's kind of like you cause them to go crazy and have madness. Alright, so now this is Conjure. I should show you that card, sorry. Conjure Arcane Glyph. When you conjure an Arcane Glyph, you pay 3 faith to do this. And then you take an Arcane Glyph token from the reserve. And then each player can have a maximum of 2 of these. So you're going to, remember I mentioned that this is like my secret objective. So you just take one of these and you put it on your player board just to show that you have it. And the Arcane Glyph tokens can be used to cancel a terror. It can be like used to say I'm going to resolve my action first. Or it can be used to upgrade a cultist. You place your cultist back, and this is one of the rare situations where you don't put your cultist back into the Swirling Madness. You just put it back in the box because there is a limited number. There's like 15 cultists per player, and that's a pretty hard. So like that's the maximum number you can have. And then you can have you can upgrade them to a spawn, a high priest, a prophet, a librarian, or a seer. And so you would just take this and remove it. And like, just like here, and like you just have an upgraded cultist. And so these just basically, like if it's a spawn, if it's used to resolve a Dreams of Terror, it adds a +1 power. If it's a high priest, if a high priest is inside a building, you get to increase that building's capacity with +3, so they can hold more. And that's a really good one. Prophets give you +1 power for recruit actions. Librarians. If it's used to resolve a read from the Grimoire, you have +1 power. And if you use a seer, you can when determining who can draw a constellation card. Remember, those are those cards that you get if you are behind. You actually -2 from your point total. So even if you're not the last person, you could possibly still get a constellation card. All right, so 4 more left. And the next one you have up is called Open Another Dimension. And you can see it costs 2 faith, because the faith cost is listed right there up in the top left. You can pay the 2 faith, and then you place a cultist on the action. You make a madness spin, and depending upon the spun power tokens, you can choose from these actions. For 1 power, you can do a shift. You can discard the 3 building cards that are available, and then draw 3 new cards to fill it up. You can choose to warp time if you get 2 or more, and then you can immediately resolve an action card you have already resolved in this round. So you can do it again. You have to still pay for it, but you can do it again. And then for 3 power, you can take an Arcane Glyph and a power token from the reserve. And that's called an Awaken action. And then instead of choosing any of those 3 outcomes from, you can open up the Nalem rack portals. If you do, you can take all the cultists on that portal, and the Nalem rack portals are right there in the middle. Now, you might be saying, well, that doesn't really make much sense. There's no cultists there. Well, just keep that in mind, because we're going to get to the point where we actually, there's an action called Exploring Nalem Rock. But first, we're going to do Summon Monsters that cost 3 faith. And then you get to draw a monster card and put it in your library. And I'm going to show you some monster cards here in just a little bit. But that's pretty straightforward, that you just add that monster, and it serves you, and fights against the other cults. All right, so here's the Explore Nalem Rock. So when you explore Nalem Rock, basically it's like the idea is that you're just opening up a gate and you just send your cultists in there. So when you get them in there, you can only resolve the action card if you've already resolved and open another dimension during this round. So keep that in mind. Then you select up to 2 cultists, and then you make a madness spin, and then you place the selected cultist on the portal space corresponding to your spun result. So you can see there are the 3 different locations there. If they're just lost in time and space with 1 power icon, nothing happens. They're just there. If you get 2 power icons, you get to draw a spell card for each cultist you placed in the portal, and then place those cards in your library. And you can kind of see those are attached to those. And then artifact cards, if you get 3 power icons, you get to draw an artifact card for each cultist you place in the portals, and place those cards open and in front of you near your old 1 sheet. And I like this guy because he's the collector, and he can have actually an extra 1 artifact. And he actually doesn't discard the first one that he uses. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So then basically what happens is if you had 2 of these, like over there, and you use that action to recover them, then like that's everybody's technically cultists, and then you get to snag them all and use them, and it's actually a much better, because you're basically opening the portal, and they're so thankful that they're back from this weird place that they immediately do like worship you or what have you and become your followers. And so, like, the final action card you have is Sacrifice. And it does just what you're thinking. You sacrifice people, to your horrible, horrible thing. So all your cultists are willing to lay down their lives. And if to resolve the action, you place a cultist in the Swirling Madness, then you can do one of two possible actions. You can gain a faith or a power. You immediately gain 5 faith, or take a power token from the reserve. Or you may pay 3 faith to advance one of your old 1 tokens a spot on those 3 up there. And so, of the 3, there are the Monuments track, which is on the left, and in the middle you have a faith track, and on the right hand side you have a power. And so the Monuments is more of it gives you more building cards, or access to have more buildings, and it helps your summoning costs. And your buildings are worth more points, so it's more of an infrastructure thing, if you will, if that makes any sense. Faith is you just gain more faith each round, and then the power path allows you the maximum of you can you can have more secret objective cards. Other players always terrify 1 less cultist. And faith cost for conjuring arcane glyphs with lowered. And then also once per round you can resolve 2 cards from your Grimoire in a row, effectively skipping all the other players. So all of those are really good, but if you notice, there aren't enough rounds in the game really for you to really get all of those. So you kind of have to decide which is the most important to you and just go that route. All right, so after all the rounds are done, you're going to total up the victory points that you get from your buildings and your secret objectives and everything. Whoever has the most points wins. I just want to show you some artifacts really quick. So like artifacts, they have points that they'll be worth at the end of the game. They also just give you certain powers and abilities. Add 2 power to a madness spin result with Anit's Shadowy Spear. The Amulet of Ekabra-Atau. Discard your uncompleted secret objectives and draw up to 3 new secret objectives. So they're just like little special powers that break the rules, but they are very powerful. Notice that you will mostly you discard those. They become unusable after the first turn unless you have a power that changes that. Monsters are probably just what you can guess. They are classic Cthulhu monsters. You gain +1 faith on your next madness spin when resolving. +1 power on your next madness spin when resolving during this round. So all of these have special abilities and what have you, and if you can get these into your hand, return up to 2 cultists from any of your result action cards to your buildings if possible. So you'd play that, and then that would allow you to use those cultists again because they return. So lots of cool little powers and abilities, and just very thematic and very fun. Spell cards, as you can probably guess, these are just going to be spells that you're going to cast. Draw a monster card and put it in your library. Banish monster. Cancel the effects of the monster card and return it to its owner's library. So, Precog. Look at the top 3 cards from either the artifact deck, the spell deck, or the monster deck, and place them back in order you're choosing. So, cool little powers that, once again, break the rules if you're able to cast those spells. And finally, the constellation cards. So, the insanity for the remainder of this round, the other players spin +1 when their madness spin result shows 1 or 2, so they get more people go mad. It affects them negatively if this happens. You may flip your faith markers to the other side, giving it to the +10. So these are the catch-up cards that allow you to, if you're not doing as well as the other players, you definitely have a shot. Then you can kind of increase your chances to win. There's a lot about this game that goes on. There's a lot of different cards, a lot of different things. But it is a game that is really, really straightforward as far as the gameplay of it. And I did enjoy. There's been some games out there that have asked you to play as the great old ones, as the Cthulhus, as the Nyarlathoteps and what have you. But this one kind of is different for a lot of different reasons. It has the feeling of building up, which I really, really like. I do like the fact that like your cultists are these resources that you gladly throw away, but then gain more. There is something just fun, and also, I mean, people will sometimes say, "Well, why a spinner?" There's something fun about a spinner. I don't know what it is. I like the idea of spinning it and everybody watching it and see where it ends up, especially when you're doing an action that affects another player that everybody is just clued in and want to see what happens. But let me talk more about all of those things in my final thoughts. All right, so that is Castle Madness. Thank you very much for sitting through that and learning how to play. I've kind of already gone over the things that I really like about the game, but just to reiterate, there's just something fun about creating a power base of worshippers, right? And just having that ability to, just moving your cults around. You go here and summon me a monster, and you go over there and get me more fresh recruits. Those types of things. It's fun to just kind of embody that element, if you will. And then the fact that you're kind of once again, like I said, racing against the other people, but also you're like directly being able to combat them and attack them and do things to actually prevent them is something that I think is welcomed in games like this, that a lot of times these games they shy away from. This would be like a total game that I could see being a garden game. Like I said, like each person just create your little followers and do your thing. And once again, I'm not downplaying garden games. Garden games are definitely fun when you want to kind of lay back and just kind of enjoy an evening of conversation and playing a game, figure out the puzzle on its own. But I do just really like being able to affect other people, and the fact that you can in this game I really, really like. So if you're looking for a Cthulhu themed game, I know there's a lot of them out there, but this one is different. It has this feeling like there's, when you construct something and build something up and you are able to kind of determine the course of what what your particular Great Old One does, it's a lot of fun. And I mean, and obviously the idea of running this this weird strange cult whose only goal is to bring about the end of the world, is just kind of a fun, funky little thing to do. So there you go. Check out Castle Madness. If you got any questions about it, ask away. I'll be happy to answer those. If you have any other comments, feel free to maybe tell me about Cthulhu games that you like or what have you. But until next time, I'm the Undead Viking. I'm telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. All right, bye-bye.